Welcome to Tutorial 6 in the video version of the Bowling League Tuneup Quick Start. In this video, we're going to look at bowler performance evaluations. This is the Kings and Queens League that bowled many years ago. This file is actually included as a sample file when you install Bowling League Tuneup. We can see that this league had a 30-week season. They bowled a split season, and they used a handicap formula of 90% of 210 in both halves of the split season. The Kings and Queens file included in the sample files contains a full season's worth of data. If we click on the first bowler on Team 1, we can see this is Drew Lyons, and we can see down in the grid all 30 weeks worth of scores for Drew are included here. We can actually see Drew didn't start the league until week 3, and so they used the league's vacancy score for the first 2 weeks. And we can see that Drew missed the first game of week 15, but otherwise he bowled a full season. We can also see that Drew had a book average of 184 and that the league used that book average to establish the bowler's handicap for the first 2 weeks of the league. And finally, we can see up here that all of these scores combine to give Drew a 185 average, a trend of +5, and high volatility. Now, we haven't discussed the concepts of trend or volatility in great detail, nor will we here, but I want to emphasize trend. It's a measurement of a bowler's performance in relation to his or her established skill level. It's a very important metric for determining outcomes in a handicap league, and Bowling League Tuneup is literally the only software in the world that computes this bowler metric. A positive trend means the bowler outperformed his or her normal established skill level, and a negative trend means the bowler underperformed. As you might guess, in a handicap league, a positive trend will enhance or help a team's chances in the league. Negative trend will hurt a team's chances in the league. Volatility is a much more intuitive concept. Low volatility simply means the bowler tends to bowl within a narrow range of games, very consistent bowler. High volatility means the bowler is all over the map, might follow a 130 game with a 230 game. Okay, so we now, after examining Drew Lyons, let's go back to the main form and refer to the computations section. If I click Use Trend Values, we can see a change in the grid, namely these numbers in parentheses next to the bowler averages. And at this point, you can surely guess what these numbers are. These are the bowler's trends. Here's Drew Lyons' trend of +5. Very important to include trends in your mid-season and post-season league analyses because they have a great influence, sometimes more influence than the averages themselves, on league outcomes. And that depends a lot on how you've set the handicap formula. So if you use trend values and they display here, they will be used in any league analyses that you perform. If I unclick trend values and click volatility ratings, we can see these symbols which represent bowler volatility. Solid dot is low volatility, dash is normal volatility, circle is high volatility. For just about all analyses you're ever going to do, you're going to want to include both trend and volatility ratings. All right, let's move over to the View League button in the League Management frame. View League is the one button we haven't seen yet. If you recall way back when, we said that Bowling League Tuneup files are stored as Microsoft Excel workbooks. If we click the View League button, that will bring up the league workbook in Microsoft Excel. Here's the league cover sheet. We can see information about the league, including its name. We can see an alphabetized list of all the bowlers in the league because we typed in last name, comma, first name. This is alphabetized by bowlers' last names, and beside each bowler is the name of the team that bowler is on. And if you recall way back when we saved a league analysis, here is where they're saved. Here is where you can access them. If we click on Preseason Analysis 1, it takes us to the Preseason Analysis 1 tab. It's a fast way of getting to this tab. This contains the analysis as we saw on the main form, including all of the league's attributes, and it also includes this very handy graph, which might make it easier to see the results of the analysis. Now, this is named preseason analysis 1, meaning this was obviously an initial attempt to tune up this league, and we can see they probably saw a lot of problems when they did this. First of all, we can see that they didn't start out with a split season. So they apparently, during the tuning up process, decided that this was going to be a split season. But at this point, they didn't know it was going to be. But they saw a lot of teams that had very low chances of finishing in first place. They saw a team that had a much higher chance of finishing in first than teams with higher averages. So they weren't happy with this. But this is the first analysis they performed. A shortcut is if you click on this icon, that will take you right back to the BLT tab. We can look at the postseason analysis that was done on this league, and you notice this postseason analysis was conducted with all 3 bowler metrics being used. And this shows, based on only the bowler performances, what were the chances of teams finishing in first place, or in all the places, but the graph shows first place, over the course of this season. It shows that Team 5 had the highest chance of finishing in first place with a 48% chance. Now, important to point out something we haven't up till this point. This is a split season. So what does it mean to finish in first place? It means that you finish, the odds of finishing in first place in one of the 2 halves of the season. When you have a split season, these numbers are showing the higher place of finish among the 2 halves. So if a team finishes in second place in one half and in 5th place in the other half, they would get credit for a second place finish. As a result, these numbers down in column 1 add up to greater than 100%, because you're going to actually have 2 first place finishers in the split season unless the same team finishes in first place twice. So that's how you would read this graph. All right, let's go back to the cover sheet and look now at the bowlers section. We want to look at a bowler performance sheet. Might as well look at Drew Lyons since we looked at his scores before. This is Drew Lyons' bowler performance sheet. It shows his season at a glance here. Only shows 28 of the 30 weeks because we know that he missed the first 2 weeks. But it gives all sorts of statistics for each week on the right side and all sorts of statistics over the course of the season on the bottom. It also shows, by the way, an effective average. We noticed that he finished with a 189 average with an effective average of only 185. That's because the effective average takes into account all games bowled in this bowler position on the team, which would include those first 2 weeks, those first 6 games of vacancy score, and that brought him down to a 185 average in addition to the absence score. These scores here are only the scores that Drew actually bowled. Again, we have graphs just like we did on the league analysis graph. We have bowler performance graphs that can make it a lot easier to understand the bowler's performance that season than just looking at a bunch of numbers in a grid. This top graph is the season average. It shows that Drew steadily increased his average over the course of the season. Weekly scores is a great way of envisioning volatility. When each week you have a vertical line which depicts the high and low scores for the week. So the longer those lines are and the greater range of scores that those lines cover would be high volatility. Well, in this case, we can see fairly long lines. We can see scores that dip below 140 and go almost to 280. So this graph shows Drew Lyons' high volatility. Weekly versus season simply shows how you did each week in relation to how you're doing over the course of the season, which is represented by this blue line. So whenever the black line goes above the blue, the bowler's performance exceeded current performance for the season in that week. And finally, you have weekly versus handicap basis. This is a great graph for envisioning trend. The line represents the average that was being used to set the bowler's handicap for each week of the season. Remember that Drew had a book average of 184, and that was used for the first 2 weeks of the season. So it starts out with 184 for the first 2 weeks as the average being used to establish the handicap. And then it depends on Drew's average over the course of the season. The dots represent Drew's performance each week. So the more dots you have in the light blue area above the line, and the higher those dots are above the line, the higher the bowler's trend will be. The more dots below the line and further below the line, the lower the bowler's trend will be, we can at a glance see that this represents a positive trend because of the preponderance of dots above the line and greatly above the line. Now, this bowler performance sheet can be printed and distributed to the bowler. If we go to the print screen, we can see this is what the bowler performance sheet will look like when it's distributed to the bowler. Leagues can choose to print out bowler performance sheets every week and give them bowlers, maybe just a couple of times a season, whatever the league wants. All right, let's go back to the cover sheet one last time and cover one more point. If you recall way back when I said that you can add your own sheets into the league workbook in order to provide a full picture of the league for anybody who would like it. And people can open this workbook, even people who don't own Bowling League Tuneup. You can add your own sheets as long as they're to the left of the BLT cover sheet. This league added 2 custom sheets. They called one first half standings. These were the standings in the league after 15 weeks, after the first half of the split season. Second half standings shows the results at the end of the 30th week. And that's what they chose to do. They could have done this for every week of the season. You can also include sheets, as we said before, for league rules, for payment records, for team photos, anything you would like. And that would all be packaged in this one league workbook that could then be given to anybody who was interested in seeing it. And you can collect them to keep a full history of all of the leagues that you're responsible for or that you were in. So that concludes this video tutorial series. I urge you to peruse the user manual for detailed information on configuring bowling leagues. And I hope that Bowling League Tuneup becomes a useful tool for all of your bowling leagues. Thanks a lot.